Hey everybody, this is Dusk for Dust to Dawn Gaming here. So, we're going to be doing a little bit of blue-black mid-range. So this is one of the decks that I haven't quite covered yet in various testing, etc. Nobody at the local shop plays it. It was probably the dominant deck right before Dominaria was let loose on the field. It was usually in the hands of somebody like what the heck is his name? Yu-Gi-Oh player Matt Folks. This is the deck he was using to tear up the circuit on Magic Online. Also had a few powerful finishes. It's basically the closest thing to the Jun deck in the standard format, I would say. Your first game matchups are you're a little subpar because you're trying to split the difference between control and aggro. In your post-board games, you tend to do a lot better in what the deck is trying to execute. You have a lot of tools in the sideboard to kind of shake one way or the other, whether you want to be more of a control deck or if you're disrupting the aggro decks, etc. This deck has a pretty decent aggro matchup in Game 1 between Gifted Aetherborn and all the removal spells, plus Scarab God, Torrential Gearhulk, Lydiana, Ravenous Chupacabra being a 2-for-1. Also the very powerful Eldest Reborn. This particular list is Misplaced Edinger's list from the PTQ the weekend of the Pro Tour, so this list is a couple weeks old. There's a couple different variations. Edinger decided to not play Champion of Wits in his list. He felt it wasn't worth it, whereas Kevin Jones at the Pro Tour decided to not play Glint Sleeve Siphoner in the main and instead chose to play Champion of Wits in the main deck. So there are a couple different schools of thought. Obviously, your 1 toughness creatures are very weak with the presence of Goblin Chain Whirler. Beyond that, I mean, Glint Sleeve Siphoner obviously is a house against control. You can resolve it and get it to stick for a couple of turns. Obviously, the dream scenarios, like in post-board games like Glint Sleeve Siphoner, duress into Glint Sleeve Siphoner into like negate, and just kind of disrupt what your opponent's doing. Beyond that, I mean, you've got a bunch of removal spells in the main deck. You have four Fatal Push, 2 Cast Down, and 4 Vraska's Contempt, and a bunch of Ravenous Chupacabras. So pretty much any creature you can answer. Supreme Will is kind of a impulse effect, also can be a counter in certain situations. Doomfall can be either a hand disruption effect or an edict effect if you can keep the rest of your opponent's board clear. Liliana, Death's Majesty, and Scarab God are kind of your big closeout threats. You also have a Torrential Gearhulk here to flashback all your various instances with. You have a couple copies of Never to Return, a pretty good removal spell, although it is sorcery speed, so that is a bit of an issue. A couple Walking Ballistas, because these lists always run a couple of them. Walking Ballista is not at its best right now, but it's still good to have a mana sink. Plus, you also have the ability to answer multiple X1s pretty quickly. And then one of Commit to Memory, because Commit to Memory is just a good card, especially when you're playing Torrential Gearhulk in your deck. As for the sideboard, a lot of this is kind of anti-control, a little bit more grind. You have a couple Search for Cantas, a couple Argyl's Bloodfasts, so you have a lot of card advantage engines to bring in against control. You have 4 Duress and 3 Negate. The Duresses can come in various situations, then Negates can come in various situations. If it plays out very similar to how my Esper list does in post-board games, you can even bring in the Duresses against things like Red-Black in the post-board configurations, because they're often bringing in Planeswalkers and Argyl's Bloodfasts, plus you're able to snag a removal spell or something. And sometimes you can go Duress into, say, Ravenous Chupacabra into Scarab God, and all of a sudden, if your opponent doesn't have their Vraska's Contempt or Unlicensed Disintegration, the game's going to get out of hand pretty quickly for them. Eldest Reborn, this is one of the more expensive but broken sagas. It's an Edict effect, then your opponent discards a card, and then you get to reanimate something, either a creature or a planeswalker on that third turn. This is the kind of shell that I would consider running the new Nicol Bolas in whenever it gets released. Like maybe in some of these Ravenous Chupacabra slots, or even the Eldest Reborn. Just feels like this is the kind of shell that something like the 4-mana Nicol Bolas is going to excel in. Like you gotta spread your mana a little bit, like run a couple more of like the red-black tap lands, or a couple more of the red-black dual lands. But I think that Nicol Bolas, even though, quote, it dies to removal, and then your ability to bring it back with Scarab God, Liliana, Death's Majesty, and the Eldest Reborn is going to be quite insane. Especially if you go like Nicol Bolas on 4, Eldest Reborn on 5, and then as long as you keep hitting your land drops, even if your opponent manages to kill it, you can get Eldest Reborn, and then immediately during your main phase, flip Nicol Bolas into its Planeswalker form. So you'll have, like, say you'll have cast Nicol Bolas, gotten the discard effect, say your opponent manages to kill it, you bring it back a couple turns later with the Eldest Reborn, and all of a sudden you have the 7-mana Planeswalker ability. I mean, yeah, you've tapped out a couple turns, but that Planeswalker form of his is freaking insane. But anyways, we're not talking about here in a couple weeks when M19 comes out. We're talking about Dominaria Standard for those of you preparing for Grand Prix Pittsburgh, or any other events between now and M19 coming out. So just a quick rundown on the list, what it does. I watched a little bit of Misplaced Edinger. I've also watched a little bit of Matthew Folks, but I am far from an expert with this archetype. This is far more mid-rangey than I play in Standard usually. Usually I'm playing the Esper blue-white control. So there are probably going to be some mistakes made. So just a heads up. If I was going to Grand Prix Pittsburgh, this is the deck that I would want to get the most reps in against and with blue-white or Esper control, simply because I think this is one of the better decks in the format, and I just don't think enough people really want to try the grind and play it. I mean, it's got fairly decent configurations against control and red-black, so I mean, if you can compete with the top 2 decks, then, and maybe have a slight dog to mono red, then I think your deck's doing something pretty strong. And in a format where pretty much most people think this is a 3 or 4 format deck, I think that could be very relevant. I have one friend who's considering playing blue-white Godpharaoh's Gift in the Grand Prix. He really seems to like the list, other than maybe the control matchup. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and keep this can. It's a little bit on the I have a lot of land side, but this deck seems pretty mana intensive, so I think I'd rather err on the side of having too many lands than too few, especially if this Siphoner somehow manages to not get answered. So game 1, it's a huge dog to control Space Marine. And if you looked at any of the coverage of Kevin Jones's thing from the Pro Tour, and any of Misplaced Edingers or Matthew Folks' streamings of the decks, Game 1 is abysmal against control, and Game 2 and Game 3, oh dear lord, that Knight of Grace is gonna be a pain in the ass. Yeah. I don't know how we're oh, well, that's one way to beat Knight of Grace, I suppose. So, am I supposed to use Fatal Push here, or am I supposed to... I guess I'm just supposed to be mana efficient with this. But yeah, Game 1 is absolutely abysmal against control Marine, but when you have duresses, negates, and multiple card advantage engines in post-board games, you're doing something right. So, but yeah, I agree with the assessment that the Pre-board games against control's got to be abysmal. Ah, opponent has Seal Away. That's not fun. So, oh, it's gonna get to protect the Knight of Grace here. Wonderful. All right, at least we're only taking 2. Gifted Aetherborn. That's an interesting one. I'm just gonna play Aetherborn here. Presume I'm gonna Fatal Push this Dauntless Bodyguard, and then next turn, walking Ballista down this Knight of Grace. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have too much more follow-ups, because we're running low on resources here. History of Benalia, that's certainly something. Another Walking Ballista is nice here. So allow me to finish off the knight. Yeah, I know the feeling. Honestly, I was very excited for this GP weekend. I honestly think I would have done pretty well as well. I honestly think I could have easily gone 10-5 or Tragic Poet. Well, that's a card. It's not. That's a card I don't want on the board. That's for doggone sure. Yeah, it would have been nice to meet you and Foz at Grand Prix Pittsburgh. I know Foz said he might have been going there, so I'm gonna take a hit from History of Benalia, but I'm alright with that. Well, it's got a nice little interesting brew they got going here. Oh, shall I? 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you probably would trounce the red decks, and if you're fairly decent at the control games, then hopefully our opponent doesn't have another land drop here. If they do, this could get a little ugly. What's my opponent's follow-up here? Knight of Grace. Doomfall. Which Doomfall is completely useless right now. Probably attacks with just Shala here. Yeah, makes sense. Go 4. Aerial Responder, that one's annoying. Vraska's Contempt. So going alright, Foz. How are you doing? Off to a little bit of a rough start against this, oh, hello. Against, green-white mid-range here. Opponent made a bit of a mistake here. Block there, block there. Opponent should only have attacked with these two, probably, in all honesty. These Knight of Graces are giving my deck fits. What's up, Jankovic? I'd seek off and watch something. Alright, well, this game's a loss. Can't compete with all these knights. Well, at least we found Blue-Black's one big Achilles heel here, these Knights of Grace. So how do I combat that? Probably want Torrential Gearhulk. Might want the Eldest Reborn, that seems reasonable. Yeah, Jankovic, I just got your mail, and I also got a email from Isa a little bit ago. So I gotta look through those. I just wanted to stream this list a little bit because I knew this isn't going to be a long stream this afternoon, and I told you guys I was going to stream this evening, so what am I taking out here? Commit seems really slow, but I think that's just the Doom Falls. Do I want to proactively try to answer? I bring in a couple duresses to try to hit like History of Benalia or something, and that I mean, Chupacabra is fine, but it's not fantastic here. So yes, like play first. Yeah, hand seems alright. Turn 1, Legion's Landing. Yeah, honestly, I think this green-white, this deck could probably give my Esper deck some fits, too, with all the Knights of Grace and History of Benalia. Like, I've noticed that's the one big weakness in my Esper build, is the weakness to, like, non-creature, non-land stuff. Or non-creature, non-planeswalker stuff. So what are the odds that my opponent has a Seal Away here? I'll take a hit from your dude. Green-black Constrictor? Or green-black Whining... I did, but I don't remember that list being, or that deck being all that good in that format. Like, maybe I'm drawing a blank, but I don't remember the, wonder how long my opponent's just gonna sit here and not cast spells. I don't know about... There was a... There was a deck that stuck around with the card Noose Constrictor and had quite a bit of synergy with discarding effects. There's also been... Are you talking the very old school Madness deck? No, I was not around in Standard for that point in time. Like, when there was Blue-Green Madness and stuff, was not my format. Cast out, really? Alright, sure. No, I was definitely not playing in 2002 Standard. Johnny, huh? That one's gonna be a little rough. Ixalan's Binding and Historybenalia. That one's, yeah. Pretty sure... I should have Gearhulk to kill this, swung at a Johnny, but the Ixalan's Binding is going to deal with it anyway. We're just going to go ahead and scoop it up. This feels like an atrocious matchup for blue-black. So, off to a roaring start after I said I thought the deck was pretty good. Post-rotation, kind of hard to tell. I think in the short term, I would plan on some type of like black, white, or Esper Knights deck, but it's kind of hard to tell what Ravnica and stuff will bring to the format. Or if enough of the deck survives, I would probably consider Grixis Midrange, because I'm a huge fan of the new Nicol Bolas. Search for Azcanta, huh? Looks like we're up against blue-black control. Yeah. That is very true. Well, Space Marine, I guess we're going to get your answer to the question how the control matchup goes. Oh, and we are in fact up against Esper. Two different decks. Mid-range is more creature value based. Control is very much like blue-white control. Does our opponent seriously have no removal spells? Or they just wait until the end of turn to kill it? What's up, Jose? I don't consider Esper to be very good, so not quite. Oh. You know, Space Marine, it's really a shame that we both can't go to Grand Prix Pittsburgh and find out who's right. Counter spells. Probably would have been the right turn to play a second one, though. Still need to wager on the winning deck. I don't wager. I just play. I don't trust in anybody's skills but my own. So. Winning deck will probably be red-black mid-range or red-black aggro. It depends, Foz. What are the betting stakes here? I'm not a rich man here. It's not even like Space Marine. It's not even that. It's just like so much has to go right for control decks to do well. Like, you know, just so much has to go right. See if they have the answer to this, probably. Are we flashing back here? We'll let this Glimmer resolve and then go ahead and contempt away this Gear Hulk. We'll settle that via email, Foz, because I'm not really sure in my YouTube terms of service the betting is allowed on stream. So we will settle that off camera. If that's fair. Oh. Here's a Teferi. See if you have a counterspell, friend. Net deck. This is Misplaced Essinger's list. So you want a playset of Jaces. Wow. Who is dumb enough to think there would be 8 Jaces in the top 8 of Grand Prix Vegas? Who is dumb enough to think that? Seriously, who is that? That much of a degenerate? Four freaking Jaces, good lord. Oh, so this wasn't like a recent bet. Gotcha. I think we're gonna go ahead and go to the post-board games. We're too far behind here. Like, I could potentially fight through this, but my opponent's got an Activist Canta. Yes, I have Field of Ruin, but it's like, I don't think we have too many removal spells for what our opponent's got going on. Alright, so these Fatal Pushes out of my deck, get these Cast Downs out of my deck, get these Duresses in here, get these Negates, Search for his Cantas, Ardal Bloodfast, Sorcerer Spyglass, guess the Oldest Reborn, and Torrential Gearhulk. Cards are not good here. Probably get these Rathies out of my deck. I'm gonna presume Walking Ballista isn't too good. I still need some amount of threats, obviously. Yeah, Spyglass is definitely in for Teferi. I don't like the Scarab God in this matchup, but I really can't afford to go down any more. Maybe these Never Returns come out. Does that leave me too light on creature answers? Alright, Space Marine, have a good night, man. Let's go with the old 61 card special. Thank you, Lance Baker, if you're still in chat for the subscription. Hopefully, one land, really? Alright, we'll go with the 2-lander. So we get to resolve our search for his Canta here. I could resolve the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, but it's just going to get killed or countered. Well, not countered, but killed. Whereas as Canta is a little more difficult for them to interact with. I'd like to put my Duress into my graveyard. No. Let's see what you're working with. Alright, cool. At least means my Siphoner will resolve. Probably gonna die, though. Mm-hmm. I'd like to put that in my graveyard. No. Trigger. Search for his Kanta. Sure, I'll put that one in my graveyard. Yes. Yep, your Glimmer resolves. I could go after that with Supreme Will, but I'm figuring if they're going to try to land a Teferi, then... Nope, no Teferi. Alright. It's kind of unfortunate. I was hoping they would get greedy and go after Teferi on that one. Nope. Don't get a draw on that one. Opponent is very patient against this Siphoner, that's for sure. Go ahead and try to run out the second one now that I have the 5th land for Supreme Will here. Guess they could have a Fumigate or something. What are they trying to flash in here at end of turn? Yeah, another Glimmer resolves. Opponent's got a lot of energy, but they're not really... They don't really do anything with it, so... 6 mana. Search for his Kanta. I like to put that in my graveyard, yes. It might. Like, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if we see a Settle the Wreckage. Attack with one or both here. It's going to attack with one. But if my opponent has to Settle the Wreckage, they're going to have to... You're going to have to earn it. Maybe I'm just being too cautious here. They are and they aren't. The go wide strategy that Blue White and Esper has to deal with is okay, sure. That kind of sucks. The go wide strategy that Esper and blue white have to deal with is more the green decks than obviously the other ones. So I'm gonna go ahead and get an attack in here with both, since they no longer obviously have sweeper mana up. They might have like Seal Away or something, I suppose, but I guess that's unlikely with... What on earth are they sitting on over there? Let's make sure we chose the right mode, yeah. Obviously this is probably going to draw and negate or disallow. Yep. Yeah, but those are still the matchups that you need, those are still the matchups that you need the sweepers in for the Esper and blue-white decks. That is the definition of the go-wide strategies in the format. See, red keeps the... Chain Whirler keeps the extreme... it's kind of funny. Control somewhat benefits from the presence of... Control somewhat benefits from the presence of the red decks, because Chain Whirler does keep some of those other decks in line, but at the same time, I don't know. For a deck that has very few, quote, viable decks in the format, at least at the top end, it's really a well-balanced format. You've got Control, you've got the red decks, you've got the green decks, you've got blue-white God Pharaoh's Gift, you've got blue-black, so you have like 4 or 5 decks that can reasonably expect to do well in a given tournament. Sure. Yeah, sure, you can have an Argyl's Blood fast. Sounds great. Alright, so you have to have a removal spell or you're dead here, friend. Actually, I guess you could conceivably sack your Scarab God to gain yourself some life here, if you don't have a removal spell. Which card are we supposed to play here? Let's go ahead and run out another Siphoner, see if this baits out a counterspell. Does not. 2, 3, 4, 5. Opponent got Scarab God back. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now they can play and activate, which is annoying. Vraska's Contempt, sure. Well, Liliana will probably be next turn. They probably had Negate up here. So now they have to decide if they want to replay Scarab God or just pass here. Looks like they're opting to replay Scarab God. Yeah, but it's more likely they have Negate there than Jace's Defeat. You finally drew a Settle the Wreckage. You finally drew a Settle the Wreckage. Opponent has Scarab God and Scarab God only. This is gonna be definitely a grind here. Yeah, Spyglass is on Scarab God. Hmm. I can't Gear Hulk. They took the Gear Hulk out of our graveyard. They wisely took the Gear Hulk. Yeah, the Eldest Reborn was going to bring back a Gear Hulk and kill them regardless of what they had here. And then the gate was just kind of the icing on the cake. But, yeah, that game was pretty close. Definitely grindy games with this deck. Definitely very grindy games with this deck. Alright, so is there anything we want to change? Probably not. Seems like a pretty good config. Other than obviously the 61 cards. It's really a shame that this deck is losing so much. This is one of the decks that I've never been able to perform with, but I do enjoy the play patterns of. So, yeah, hand seems good. And we're even ahead on clock, as much as that's relevant. Alright, so Duress you, see what you got going on over there. Search for his Canta, disallow, syncopate, and yeah, just take your card advantage engine here. Just pass here, cast nothing. Next time we'll be able to Duress plus resolve one of our spells. Gear Hulk. It's quite a hand they've got there. Go ahead and run this Siphoner out. If they want to counter it, they can counter it. Yep. Search for his Kanta is really kind of the prize here. In this turn, they won't have an answer to it unless they drew a counterspell this turn. Alright, search for his Kanta's in. And they're getting close to Gearhulk mana, but do I like to put that in my graveyard? No. Gotta go ahead and do this. So we're leaving them with a Vraska's Contempt and a Swamp. Seems decent for us. Yes, I'd like to put that Swamp in my graveyard. Of course, we turn around and draw our own. See if they just Contempt this. Probably not. Doesn't feel like a card you really want to Vraska's Contempt. Did you draw? Oh, no. Main phase, Glimmer of Genius. Alright. Could be in trouble depending on what they topped. They can answer that search for his Kanta, we're in some trouble. I mean, Gearhulk's a fine threat, but we have no spells to actually pair with it. This is a Teferi? Yep, another Glimmer. Alright. Yep, I found them Forsake the Worldly. It's one card I'm going to have to work into my build of Esper at some point, so. Despite duressing them into oblivion, I think we're now definitely behind this game. We know one of their cards in hands of Vraska's Contempt. Yep, now if they untap with in play Scarab God, then we're kinda up a crick here. It's the last card in their hand we know about. Yeah. Maybe our opponent will tap out for a Teferi here. Yeah, not a bad idea, Foz. I draw another land. And we've got a lot of life total to work with here, but I think we're in some bad shape here. Really needed to search for his Kanto or Argol's Bloodfast to stick on the battlefield here. Especially when this will be our opponent's third Glimmer of Genius they've resolved. Yeah, that's the one thing. I mean, we had those early Duresses and early Doomfalls, but without pressure to back it up, we kind of Is there even any creatures in the graveyard? Sure. Problem is, once I fielded their land, they only had... oh, yeah. When they tapped out for Glimmer. Yeah, I see what you meant. Yeah, I'm going to have to flash in this Gearhulk this turn anyway, and it's probably going to get countered because I didn't take advantage of that one window. Yep. Enough mana to bring it back. That's just game. See what we have drawn here. Yeah, I probably should have flashed in the Gearhulk there during that one opening salvo there. Couple matches with the deck. I really wanted to see it against an Esper control deck. Obviously, we succeeded in that regard. Feels like we're pretty favored post board, but if we don't like keep a card advantage thing on the battlefield, obviously we're at a huge disadvantage. So, because we're a grindy 1-for-1 deck against a deck with a bunch of 2-for-1s without either without a Siphoner, a Search for his Kanta, or an Argol's Bloodfast on the board. I mean, we have a lot of card advantage post board, but you know, like they had answered our Search for his Kanta and our one Glintsleeve Siphoner, so we just kind of ran out of the building once they started going Glimmer into Glimmer. So I think the deck overall is fine. I don't do particularly well with its play patterns. Maybe I don't have enough practice with it, or maybe I'm just maybe it's just not my style of deck. But I mean, it's certainly a deck I enjoy. It's a deck that I'm kind of gonna play with, mainly because I'm interested in the Grixis version of this deck with Nicol Bolas, just because that's like the card I'm most excited for from M19. Beyond that, I mean, obviously this deck's going to primarily rotate a lot of its really good pieces are going to be leaving the format. So if this is the kind of deck you enjoy, play it now. You've got like another 3.5 months, because like most of this, the core of this deck is going away. Yeah, Bolus boy. You not seen the new Bolus? Has anybody in chat not seen the new Bolus yet? So these are the spoilers for the set so far. Nicol Bolas. Nicol Bolas the Ravager enters the battlefield. Each opponent another Creature of the Winds deck. It can be an 11-mana Planeswalker if you want to look at it that way. But you also have the fact that when he comes into play, each opponent discards a card. So for 4 mana, you're getting a 4/4 flyer that each opponent has to discard a card. You also, in a Grixis Shell, can be playing things like Champion of Wits and Liliana Death's Majesty, like we were just playing, and Scarab God. So you can like put him into the graveyard, or he dies, either from a counterspell or whatever. And like turn 7, end of turn 6, bring him back in with Scarab God. Actually, would that work? That's an interesting thing. I don't know if that would actually work. Bring him back. You can like bring him back with Eldest Reborn on like turn 7, or with Liliana Death's Majesty, and pay your 7 mana and have a very, very broken Planeswalker. Maybe I'm a little too excited about it, but yeah. Draw 2 cards. Nicol Bolas deals 10 damage to target creature or Planeswalker. Put target creature or Planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. And his -12, exile all but the bottom card target player's library. Yeah, I was just thinking of that. But even with Liliana and Eldest Reborn, that's quite a bit of reanimation in a value-driven deck. So this would be like another huge source of card advantage if you're able to flip them. Oh, Lily does say non-legendary? That's unfortunate. So I guess it's just Eldest Reborn then. But fortunately, Nicol Bolas and Eldest Reborn are staying in the format, so. I don't know, Janshevik. We had my local store, there's somebody who plays cats. And cats on cats on cats on cats. And he does surprisingly well with the deck. I mean, he's usually 3-1 or 2-2 like every week. His only losses are usually to like control decks pretty much. So I don't think Cats was ever like a top tier deck, but it was a fun deck. We might play a Cats deck here before rotation. But I mean, obviously time is limited, so. But yeah, Nicol Bolas, maybe I was a little too excited about the card now that Foz has pointed out. Actually, Foz does not say anything about legendary. It says return target creature from your card from your graveyard to the battlefield. The creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. So Liliana can in fact return it. So gonna say, because I thought Liliana was able to return Scarab God. So, I was like, why would it say non-legendary? Like, maybe I'm just getting too excited over Nicol Bolas, but... Make your opponent discard a card and draw two. Okay, maybe I'm just getting overly excited about the card. What decks is best against control? Depends on the configuration of the deck. Against blue-white in particular, the red-black and blue-black, perhaps you're right, Foz. I mean, only time will tell. But red-black and blue-black in the post-board configurations are pretty good against blue-white. Inherently, most decks are pretty weak to control in Game 1s. Perhaps. But you don't play Standard, so how are you going to lose to it? I don't know that it's good enough to see play in Modern. Although, to be fair, on a complete side note, I have been watching Gabriel Nassif basically playing a... Oh, yeah, you'll probably definitely lose to it in Draft. But Gabriel Nassif's been playing a lot of Standard cards in a Modern blue-black control list and been doing quite well with it. I believe he's even running... He's running, like, Scarab God, Search for his Kanta... His deck looked interesting. I'll have to actually look up and see if I can find an actual list. But he was actually running Factual the Scarab God in Modern. And I believe some number of Torrential Gearhulks in the list. It was actually looked like a pretty fun list. But, so, that's what's going on, but, But, yeah, I mean, I'm still going to have Esper after M19, but I'm pretty much going to have the store championship thing locked up, or the store invitational thing locked up, so I'm going to feel free to, like, experiment with Standard for the last couple months of the format, just because I want to play something fun, and Grixis mid-range with Nicol Bolas looked fun, so we'll see. Could be a complete waste of time, could put it down after a week or two, could be next tier 1 deck, you never know. But, Foz, you're right. Yeah. It's kind of an insane fact. But, I know, but I honestly didn't see the Scarab God as Modern playable, at least not, like, in an actual, factual, potentially viable deck. I mean, a 5-mana do-nothing creature is kind of rough to play in Modern. Although, if any deck can do it, it's definitely a control deck. So. Alrighty. It's going to be about dinner time here on my end. I'll be back late this evening with some more stuff. I have no idea what I'm going to work on. I have a couple different lists I got to play. I got to play that, or got to dig up that list from the opponent we played in Modern yesterday. I have a couple lists from Janshevik to look at. Asa sent me a list or two. So, I have several different things to look at. Foz, you're still supposed to get me your burn list, aren't you? Scry's deal damage. Oh, I agree, it's an insanely powerful card. I'm just curious that a 5-mana do-nothing card can see play in Modern. But like I said, it's... And, I mean, granted, it's hard to kill outside of Path to Exile, like, permanently. But... I want to thank everyone for tuning in this afternoon. Like I said, this is going to kind of be our normal-ish stream time, especially on days that I'm working. I know what Scarab God does, man. I've played it enough. But, so, yep. I mean, this deck was fun. Obviously, I lost both games or both matches I played with it, but the control matchup was fairly interesting until game 3 just went, sideways with 3 glimmers, and we have no source of card advantage in play. So that's what happens. It's all control wins. So, all right, thanks everyone for tuning in. I will be back probably around 10:30 tonight Eastern Standard Time with something. I'm not quite sure what. So want to have cards out with children in the house. Completely understandable. So I will catch everybody later, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you like what you're seeing, feel free to hit that like button. So thanks everyone for hanging out. Voz, Janshevik, Space Marine, and whenever you're watching this later, everybody else, thanks for hanging out. Have a good evening.